when I was 8 years old, my father informed the family that he wanted to build a motel out on Highway 22 in Fort Smith. I thought this was a little strange even at that age because I didn't even know what a motel was. I may have seen one, but I've been in a hotel, but I didn't know what a motel was. And it wasn't clear to me my father had ever even stayed in a motel. But maybe he had driven by one of those new Holiday Inns in his travels, I'm not sure. He was actually right about the fact that motels were going to be a coming thing, but I don't think he really had a plan other than to try to figure out how to finance it. And the next thing my father came up with, you can see we're starting to get this entrepreneurial story going. The next thing he came up with after the motel was that we should be in the building supply business and specifically contract builders hardware. My father didn't know anything about contract builders hardware either. He had sold general hardware and had previously worked for Rice Sticks Dry Goods and sold cloth. So now all of a sudden we're selling locks, doors, aluminum windows, and all that stuff. So it was kind of a rocky road, but it gave me an awful lot of insight into entrepreneurism. And I realized that my father had a lot of great ideas, but his planning and often his execution might have lacked. Now, I looked at that, not so much at that time, but later, as I went on and actually got a mechanical engineering degree from the University of Arkansas. I soon, right after graduation, went to work for IBM. You notice the dress difference, right? Well, I learned a lot at IBM. I had a chance to see a company that was the envy of the world, and at IBM, not only did we learn about computers, but we were given a tremendous amount of individual responsibility on installing those things. Our bosses had never installed a computer because there weren't any, and this was in the 1960s. The first IBM 360s were often the first computers even my bosses at IBM had ever seen. And that's actually a picture of a System 360 there, me standing proudly beside it. And during that experience at IBM, not only did I learn a lot about computers and computing, but I got to see a lot of cool businesses. I saw businesses that weren't running very well. I saw business doing very well. And I looked around, and one thing that struck me was that those businesses that were the most successful businesses, kind of like IBM, had outstanding people. And when I went, one of the last things I did while I was at IBM is go to a conference, an awards conference. And I was thinking about my future by this time. Did I want to stay with IBM or not? And I went to that awards conference in Atlanta, and they had a screen bigger than this one. And when I walked in, all I could see on that screen was the difference is you. And I came in, believe it or not, that place had red seats in it. That was kind of weird. I remember that. It was in this big auditorium. And I was sitting there looking at that, the difference is you. And it struck me for a moment, IBM didn't have the best computers. IBM necessarily didn't have some of the same things UNIVAC and some of its competitors had, but it had the best people by far. That was something that has lived with me my entire life, that epiphany that I had at that moment. But I'd also observed while I was at IBM some outstanding companies. And in some of those outstanding companies, I got to see another side of what I would call, outstanding company and what it takes. And I sort of figured out along the way business culture was also important. And the business culture that was probably the strongest that I saw then or now was what I saw at Walmart. I got to be at Walmart, actually work with Sam Walton and his whole team. He had outstanding people, and everybody knew who the boss was. They followed Sam. He gave and presented a clear vision. They had a clear customer-oriented focus. Everybody knew that everyday low price was where it was at. Sam took time to be involved in other things, and that's where I got to know him later, is helping try to improve education and other things in Arkansas. But this idea that I got from Sam was that a leadership-based culture, people like to know where they're going, what they're going to do, and they like to be led by somebody they can believe in. And a lot of these things I'm talking to you about don't necessarily just apply to the top guy in any business. These things apply to any job. If you're seen as the leader, if you're seen as the person who is trusted, the person who has the best articulation of goals and objectives, leads by example, then people are going to look up to you and you're going to be more successful in a job. So I'm talking about my experience, but I think they apply in all businesses. So in all business culture situations. So when I left IBM, I did decide that I wasn't going to stay at IBM. I joined a little computer service company in Conway that was called Demographics, and it became Acxiom. It was very small, about 25 people. We were in all sorts of things, primarily computer service business, and I took all these lessons that I'd learned, the idea that you had to have good people and you had to have a strongly led culture, and I tried to figure out from my father's failures that I needed a good plan. And we thought we had a good plan, good people. We were going to be smarter than the next guy. We were going to write better software. But what we didn't realize is our market was too small, and many of the things we were doing, the market potential wasn't big enough to grow any kind of business in Arkansas. So we had a lot of the basics, but we had a bad plan. And one of the next things that I would suggest to you is that you need to continually change your plan. And the better plan that we had at Acxiom was to move to a different market focus and focus on direct marketing and list processing applications, which we could do as well as anyone. So I got a new suit. So you saw that suit earlier. I kept that IBM suit and went to New York with my suit on, and we marketed our list processing and database marketing skills in a much larger market, New York. But what that required is we kind of changed all of our focus and direction. We got out of our service bureau business. We got out of political direct mail, which we'd been in, and focused entirely on building advanced database applications. And that whole process of building that company was a process of continuously planning. We had 2-day planning meetings virtually the entire time I was Acxiom, 3 times a year, and we kept continuously changing our direction a little bit. And in particularly any kind of technology business, our job or anything else, the one direction is not the answer. You got to continually adjust to circumstance, but you also got to get your people with you. Wherever you are, you have to get your people with you. And so everybody is on the same pathway and the better understanding. And as we continue to grow Acxiom, this is a picture of a race team. You see, what the hell is he doing with that? But as we grew Acxiom and got it to be much bigger, then we went from 25 to 50, 100, 500, 1,000 people, and I looked around and said, we're not getting any work done here. Everybody's frustrated. We are just completely behind on, seemed like every new development project, every customer, and I looked at my race team, and this is a picture of winning a trophy. It's 24 hours a day total. You get about 12 people who work about 36 hours nonstop. They didn't have any titles. They didn't have any structure. They just knew their jobs, and they were dedicated to a result, and that was winning. There wasn't any politics. There was nothing, no distraction other than the driver screwing up, which I did a lot. But anyhow, and it looks like we won here, so that was really good. But I looked at Acxiom, and none of that stuff was happening. We had 10 levels of management. Now, that ain't a good idea as I looked at it. We had 280 separate different titles. Boy, that's really hard. What does that director of assistant research for marketing mean? Hell, I don't know. And so our structure was screwed up, our organization, so we just decided that we would change everything and figure out a better culture. In other words, a better way to work together, a better way to work together. And we started this thing called the Race for Excellence, and I had learned already that anytime you make a major change, remember I watched Sam Walton, anytime you make a major change, the top guy better be driving it or it's going to be difficult to make that happen. And it became obvious just looking back to, what do we call it? Race for Excellence. And so see, we're back to that's why I use that race car slide, right? Not because I love racing, that had nothing to do with it. But we wanted to do what we did in the race team and a lot beyond. We wanted to empower the people at all levels of Acxiom, but we didn't want many levels. We took it from 10 levels down to 3 levels when we still had 1,000 people. Well, that means you don't have very many bosses, or one boss has got 25 people. They better be empowered or nothing's going to get done. And we also killed all those titles, so we didn't have to worry about it. We had business unit leaders, organizational leaders, and then one company leader. That was me. So we did all those things, and guess what? Our productivity exploded. Our productivity exploded. We grew the business from 1991, when we started all this process, to 1998, from $100 million to almost $1 billion. In about 8 years. With our old culture, never would have happened. These same kind of things work for small business as well as large. You've got to empower the people, and you've got to kill the things in the culture that get in the way. So let me just kind of summarize a couple of additional things. Some of the real keys to successful culture is, again, copied Sam Walton. I didn't copy Sam Walton everything, but I wouldn't mind copying him on quite a few. He did pretty good. We called everybody associates versus employees. I'd rather be talking to my associate than talking to my employee. It's just a whole different connotation. And the culture that you build in a business, it goes from the beginning of that business to literally to the end of that business. We called our customers our partners. The culture is the dress that you have. You remember the suit? You all are a test right now, because if I came up here in a suit and said, I am now running a high-tech business, come over and see us all in our suits, you would say, are you kidding me? So the culture is the visual clues. It's the unwritten things that go on in a business every day. And I'm at a new business, PrivacyStar, and I've tried to apply all the things that I learned in all those other ventures and growing the business of Acxiom all those years. But you still have to learn. And sometimes you forget, looking way back, how hard it is to be an entrepreneur. And it always, always takes a lot more time and a lot more money to make any venture successful. We are very successful at PrivacyStar building mobile technology solutions, and our little company is growing like crazy, doubling or tripling our revenue every year. But it's hard, folks. We had 5 years of losing money like crazy. Fortunately, I was able, along with some others, to be able to fund this thing. Our we would have failed, just like so many, 80% of startups fail. So we had the money and resources, but it was tough. And, to summarize what we've just, been talking about in a few bullet points, people really matter. Leadership and people are key. The business culture that you're in, whether it is in your business unit, your big business or small business, can kill it or it can help it. It can't make you successful, but it can certainly impact your results. And no plan is good for long. Plans need to be continuously revised and changed to meet the current needs of the customers or the business or the opportunities or new technology. And the last thing I'm going to say is everybody says risk-taking is the key. You got to take risks, and I would say that is absolutely correct in a measured way. If you keep taking big bets, you're going to lose one of those, and then you're out of business. So I always suggest measured risk-taking. Don't bet more than you can afford to lose, whether it's your personal money or your company money. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Charles.
Thank you, Tim. Enjoyed it.
So did I, very much so. Yeah, it's a privilege to be here, it really is.
Thank you very much.
In the world of big data, what's the next big breakthrough for big data in your mind?
Well, I think the breakthrough is what's going on right now with a lot of the new tools and technologies. It's the ability to, store big data inexpensively and access it. Cloud and big data are really one thing in my view. We're transitioning to cloud at PrivacyStar as the prices, we're using Amazon Cloud by the way, as the prices come down and the tools get better. They're tools like, tools that many of us had never heard of just a year or two ago. Splunk is a database management tool that a lot of companies, including Acxiom now uses. Have you heard of Spark?
Yes.
There are a lot of new technologies that are allowing you better ability to access, use this data, create applications around. And it's been mentioned earlier in some of the presentations, but companies like Uber are totally a big data company. You think there's an app, that's absolutely wrong. They use big data, they use every kind of weather data, previous historical data, traffic patterns, all this to come together to change their pricing, routing, and their whole planning is real time based on a tremendous amount of data.
So a lot of your talk was about risk and about things you learned the hard way. Obviously, that's the name of the talk. So what was the scariest moment for you, if you don't mind sharing it with us, in all of your entrepreneurial journeys, and how did you deal with that?
Well, I think the scariest moment, one of the things that as an entrepreneur, it's really good, you have to believe you're going to succeed. And my father, I think I got this from my father, he just always believed he could do this. And even when we were in the early days of Acxiom, we were on half salary. I had to go to the whole team and say, you're on half salary, the whole senior leadership team. And some of them had young families. I mean, they couldn't afford it. They had a little bit of savings. But I said, I can't make the payroll unless, and I have no other source of funds. And believe it or not, at the time, I didn't even own a majority interest in the company, which was kind of stupid. I don't know what the hell was wrong with me. But I bet my salary and life of some of the key people that I recruited in the business because I believed in what we were doing. And I could convince them, if we get this thing done, we will succeed, and I'll give you $2 back for every dollar you lose in salary today, plus if I ever get control of this damn thing, I'll give you some stock. I'll make you a millionaire. Boy, they believe that stuff.
So that leads to my next question. So what's the first piece of advice you would give to entrepreneurs in the crowd or watching, or someone such as myself? What's the key wisdom?
Well, I talk about 2 or 3 things, but I hear so many new great ideas. And the one thing I can suggest is be sure you test your idea against reality. I had somebody bring me an idea just the other day that was a very, very cool idea. And it was something absolutely, if it had a high adoption rate, would be very successful. But it was going to take $20 or $40 million of marketing dollars to get it. There's so much noise out there, so many apps, so many people competing in every area of space. Your idea can be 10 times better than the next guy's, but you have to have the money and the resources to make it reality, or the partners. PrivacyStar, we realized we couldn't do what we wanted to with mobile solution. We couldn't sell the users, we couldn't afford to do the marketing, but guess what we did do? We went to Metro PCS, AT&T, T-Mobile. Those guys have got plenty of money, so at least if I can sell one of those guys or two of those guys, they've got the money. I don't have it.
Right. I remember some of those days. I was working with Luke Irvin
Oh,
at
boy.
PrivacyStar, not as an employee, but contracting with you guys on
Sure.
some projects there. And those are exciting times. I'm glad you're in Little Rock now.
Well, we're having a lot of fun right now, and you know, we've got big deals going on in London and in Seattle and
Congratulations.
San Mateo, and we got a big meeting in Atlanta next week. and
Arkansas is coming on.
Dallas. It's crazy.
Thank you, Charles.
So yeah, thank you very much. Enjoy. Thank you all very much.